For those who may not know, 2 years ago, this very spot that we saw earlier today, Prime Minister announced millions of dollars in funding to build new housing units for our community. And now 2 years later, we have over 300 units that are already ready to welcome new families in Brampton West. And I'm so glad to be, absolutely. And I'm so glad to be back here once again with my outstanding Team Brampton colleagues, Maninder Sidhu, Ruby Sahota, Sanya Sidhu, Shafqat Ali, and of course our wonderful municipal partners, Mayor Patrick Brown, and all the councillors that are here today to deliver even more good news for Brampton. The purpose of Housing Accelerator Fund is simple. It's to build more homes faster. And that is exactly what today's announcement is going to do for the residents of this beautiful community of Brampton. You know, one of the top issues that my colleagues and I often hear in our community is about housing. And our government knows that. Like the residents of Brampton West, Canadians from coast to coast to coast are concerned about finding an affordable place to call home. And I want everyone to know that our government is listening and is taking bold action. And that, of course, is why we're all here today. Today's announcement is yet another example, just one of the ways in which our government is stepping up, showing leadership, working in collaboration with municipal partners, tackling the housing crisis head-on and making life more affordable for Canadians. And now to tell us a little bit more about this, I want to introduce our first speaker, someone that works harder than anyone I know for this country, our Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau.
Good morning, bonjour. What a great day for Brampton. What a great day for us to be gathered here today. Patrick, Mayor Brown, thank you so much for having us here in Brampton today, but thank you even more for your ambition, for your strong partnership, your vision for Brampton, which is impacting people not just here in Brampton for the better, but people moving to Brampton from across the country, indeed around the world. Your leadership is extremely strong. Minister Fraser, Sean, it is so great to be together yet again for another big announcement. We're seeing across the country people are stepping up with our Housing Accelerator to move forward with ambitious plans to respond to the needs out there, to meet the moment, to continue growing strong, livable communities right across the country in ways that are going to set us on the right path for years and indeed decades to come. Minister Khera, thank you so much, Kamal, for all your leadership and everything you're doing, but also to all of our great team, Ruby, Sonia, Maninder, Shafqat, thank you so much for being part of this amazing team here in Brampton, speaking loudly for Brampton and Ottawa, making sure that you're continuing to lead with this incredibly strong, connected community. Merci à tous d'être ici pour cette annonce qui va aider à créer plus de logements plus rapidement ici à Brampton. People across the country are struggling with the rising costs of housing, and in Brampton you're feeling it acutely. This is a community that is only getting bigger. In fact, Brampton is one of the fastest growing municipalities in Canada. Well, you need more housing to keep up with the demand, and you need it to be built faster and built in convenient, connected places. Well, that's what our Housing Accelerator is all about, and why I'm so excited to be announcing that we have reached an agreement with the City of Brampton. Today, we're announcing that Brampton is the next city to receive significant funding from our Housing Accelerator, and we estimate that this will mean more than 24,000 new homes over the next decade, with 3,100 fast-track to be built in the next 3 years alone. As part of this plan, we'll see houses built near transit stations like the nearby GO station, near main streets and downtown, places that are convenient, places where people want to live, places where people can have the very best quality of life. Sean va pouvoir nous partager plus de détails dans un instant, mais je sais qu'il travaille fort pour conclure d'autres ententes comme celle-là. C'est la 5e entente qu'on a avec une grande ville depuis qu'on a lancé le fonds pour accélérer la construction de logements et je sais qu'il va en avoir d'autres un peu partout à travers le pays. So the cost of living is putting a lot of pressure on the middle class and people working hard to join it, which is why we've been making sure to deliver real relief. We're delivering support for families by bringing the cost of daycare down, with it on track to reach $10 a day. And today, eligible families will receive their monthly Canada Child Benefit payments. This is hundreds of dollars tax month that makes a huge difference in the lives of millions of Canadians. This important support increased just in July to keep up with inflation, which means this year a family could receive up to almost $7,500 a year tax-free. We delivered the grocery rebate, and we're working to bring relief at the checkout counter through both legislation and our conversations that are holding big grocers to account. We're tackling junk fees and taking action to reduce banking fees. On a éliminé les intérêts sur les prêts canadiens aux étudiants et aux apprentis, et les prestations que les aînés reçoivent chaque mois augmentent pour suivre l'inflation. We know that the cost of housing is one of the biggest stresses each month. And after decades of inaction by previous governments, our government has been getting to work, investing in affordable housing and programs to help people through the National Housing Strategy, which helped build that project 2 years ago, the tax-free First Homes Savings Account, and more. We need more housing, more collaboration with great partners across orders of government, more investment from private and non-profit partners, and of course, more shovels in the ground. We need to work together to build homes so people can build their lives, families, and futures they want. We've faced big challenges as a country before, and we're ready to tackle them now. That's exactly what today is all about. On travaille avec des partenaires de partout au pays pour s'assurer que la promesse du Canada tienne. Cette promesse d'améliorer la qualité de vie à chaque génération. Canada is the best country in the world. Let's keep working to make it even better. Merci beaucoup, mes amis. And now I'm happy to turn it to a minister who's been unbelievably hardworking in getting out there across the country to encourage, push, pull, cajole, and exhort municipalities, not that it was very hard with Brampton, but encourage municipalities across the country to step up with our housing accelerator. And it's a real pleasure to see you. It's always great news to be making announcements with you. Turning it right now over to Sean Fraser. Sean.
Thank you. Merci tout le monde pour être ici pour une bonne annonce dans l'histoire de la cité. Mayor Brown, thank you in particular, not just for hosting us here today, but for your ambition to build more homes quickly. From the first conversation, it was clear you were a willing partner. Colleagues, I just want to say thank you. We don't get far if we don't have participation from local people who know their community. Folks, these are my friends. These are champions for the City of Brampton and are a big part of why we are able to make a terrific announcement that the Prime Minister shared some preliminary details with you about just a moment ago. Before I get into the specifics of the agreement between the Government of Canada and the City of Brampton, let me just acknowledge the issue that we're trying to tackle is a national housing crisis. We need to pull every lever at our disposal if we're actually going to build enough homes to restore a level of affordability so ordinary people can actually find a place that they can actually afford. A big part of the reason that we're dealing with such high rents, such high purchase prices is the lack of supply of homes in the market, and we need to build more of them. There's a number of different, very specific obstacles we need to overcome, and you will have seen in recent months we've been doing more to tackle those specific issues. Of course, we started a number of years ago with the National Housing Strategy with a unique focus on affordable housing for low-income families. But as the situation has changed, so too does the approach. You will have seen that we've introduced the removal of the GST from new apartments that are being built. Within days, we heard from developers across the country that thousands of new homes would be built as a result of that one policy. Today, we're tackling a different problem, and that's changing the way that cities build homes. It's making sure that cities are actually legalizing housing. A lot of people don't realize One of the reasons that certain communities in this country don't have enough homes is because it's literally illegal to build the kinds of homes that people could live in if municipalities change their rules. We have seen over the last number of weeks and months, the cities are lining up to tap into federal investments so they can permit housing developments more quickly, and so they can build more densely and connect people to the transit that they need, to the services that they need, and the economic opportunities that they need. One of the things that excites me is, like the GST, this new program is actually showing results early on. We've seen so far agreements with the City of London, the City of Vaughan, the City of Halifax. We've got a deal with the City of Hamilton. We're seeing movement where not just discussions are happening, but motions are being adopted to change zoning rules in places like Guelph and Kitchener and Calgary and Burlington. The early signs are very, very encouraging, and despite the enormity of the challenge, needing to build literally millions of homes, I have faith that we can get there if we all work together to do it. And that brings me to the story of the day, the City of Brampton. We are going to be investing $114 million to support Brampton's efforts over the next 3 years to build more than 3,150 homes and 24,000 over the next 10 years. And I got to tell you, it feels like I'm pushing on an open door. The first conversation I had with certain members of council, staff, and Mayor Brown was extremely encouraging. They submitted an ambitious application to the fund at the outset that focused on creating incentives for more affordable housing, that focused on building more densely, that focused on making sure that they were going to be building more homes near transit, that they were going to be implementing inclusionary zoning practices and reducing minimum parking requirements to build livable for communities for people who may not be able to afford a car or may not want to live in a community that requires it because they have access to working, functioning transit that's of high quality and reliable, that provides a high quality and reliable system. Despite the strength of the application, during the meeting we held here in Brampton a number of weeks back, we encouraged the city to go a little bit further in two specific ways. One was to permit, as of right, 4 units and 4 stories within walking distance of every transit station in this city. And another was to allow more flexibility to permit secondary residences, additional dwelling units on properties that do exist today. The answer that I received was, sure, let's work on doing that together. And that set the stage for us to be able to come here today. If I've got a message for other cities out there, there is additional federal money on the table. We believe that federal leadership and federal funding can help drive municipal change, but we need willing partners. We need you to say you're going to build homes near transit. We need you to say that you're going to create opportunities for students to connect to post-secondary institutions. We need you to say we're going to build homes that allow people to access the services and to access the job opportunities that their families rely on. I'll conclude with a final thought. We don't do this alone. We don't make decisions in boardrooms in Ottawa. Things are happening in council chambers, they're happening with private developers, they're happening with nonprofits. But when we work together, we can create a system that puts a roof over every Canadian's head, and we can create an awful lot of jobs in the meantime. There are hundreds of people working on projects right outside in good-paying jobs, good-paying union jobs that are going to make a difference in this country, and they're going to provide the solution to the housing crisis by building more homes more quickly. Thank you very much. With that, I'll pass the floor over to an excellent partner, Mayor Brown. Congratulations and welcome to the microphone.
Well, thank you, Minister Fraser and Prime Minister Trudeau, for the support. This is an exciting day for the City of Brampton. I want to start off by recognizing the members of Council we have here today who are equally committed to building housing in our city. First of all, we have our Planning Chair, Michael Paleschi, and the Councillor for this area as well. We have Councillor Keenan, Councillor Brar, Councillor Power, our Deputy Mayor Harkirat Singh, Councillor Tor. Just all give us a wave, and thank you for the incredible support Thank you for the unified and incredible support to combat this housing crisis. And thank you to the Daniels Corporation for being our host today and for continuing to be an amazing champion for affordable housing. Daniels has been an incredible corporate citizen. Building a modern, inclusive, world-class city takes creative approaches to building housing, and the City of Brampton is committed to that. I want to acknowledge Minister Fraser's approach to housing has been so refreshing. I've been in public service over a time when we've had 4 different prime ministers and numerous ministers of infrastructure and housing. I've never had a minister of housing reach out to us proactively and ask for a meeting about how they can help to build housing. When Minister Fraser came to Brampton, he didn't come to make an announcement. He came with a pad of paper and a pen to ask us questions about how we could build housing further. I was actually so pleasantly surprised that was the approach that you took. And he asked questions about whether it was flood mitigation that would help build more housing, where there are opportunities to expedite housing near transit. And so it's wonderful to have a collaborative federal partner that is helping the City of Brampton, because we are ambitious in our housing targets. We have signed the Ontario Municipal Housing Pledge, which is a target of creating 113,000 new residential units over the next 10 years. And our planning commissioner tells me we are on pace to hit it. It's not just making a commitment, but we're actually seeing the approvals and the permits that we're actually going to hit our provincial target. Today's federal announcement of $114 million in funding through the Housing Accelerator Fund certainly helps us in a very big way to fight this housing affordability crisis. It builds on our local work and really expedites areas that can really give momentum to this plan to build housing. As it was mentioned by the minister, this will fast-track 3,150 units. This is going to unlock significant housing growth. And I'd say, mentioning that over 10 years it could be 24,000, that's probably a modest assessment of how the federal government is helping, because I look at what they already did, and it was an announcement in the summer that didn't get a lot of attention with Riverwalk. That's enabling density in our downtown. So the federal government continues to be an incredible partner for the City of Brampton. And just to speak to that momentum, according to Stats Canada, we are the fastest growing big city in Canada. Since the last census was reported between 2016 and 2021, we increased by 10%. This city is booming in population growth, and that means they need housing. To put that into context, the adjacent city, Mississauga, declined by 0.5%. So you look at that comparison, this is a source of tremendous growth. And I have to say, our planning commissioner, Steve Ganesh, I've added this into my notes, which he helped prepare, and he was not included in it, but I want to highlight him because he is a magician with building housing. Steve, give us a wave. He is always looking at creative ways to cut red tape and make sure we can build housing faster. And in the last Build Benchmark study, which actually ranks how much red tape there is in building housing across the GTHA, Brampton has gone from 12th fastest to 4th fastest, and he's got a mandate to get to number 1. Unfortunately, Milton is number 1 right now, but we're going to catch them, aren't we, Steve? And we're going to make sure this is the easiest place to build houses for Canadians. In Brampton, we are committed, absolutely committed to building the missing middle housing for younger generations. And that's what, at the end of the day, this is about. There are too many families that can't afford housing. I can't even imagine what it's going to be like. MP Minister Trudeau and my children go to the same school, and my daughter is 2, my son is 4. And if we keep on doing things the same way, there's no way they can afford a home. Announcements like this are about changing the game, about actually looking at ways to create more housing, to create that housing competition that we need to have competitive prices. So I want to really thank the federal government for this positive collaboration, for looking at ways that we can work together and be even more ambitious. The City of Brampton is committed to implementing as-of-right zoning for 4-story buildings within an 800-metre radius of our support corridors, and 4 dwelling units as a right on our residential lots along transit corridors. This is not only great for the environment and great for housing, but how nice is it to live in a community that you can simply walk to the transit station. You can walk across the street. Where we were today, literally, they can wake up and within 1 minute walk to the GO train station. And so this is about livable communities. So I want to thank the Prime Minister today. I want to thank Minister Fraser and all of Team Brampton, all our MPs who were very vocal in advocating that this was an opportunity for the City of Brampton to move the housing file forward. So on behalf of our council and our city, I want to thank the Government of Canada for a wonderful day for the City of Brampton.
Well, thank you so much, Mayor Brown, for your kind words, the Prime Minister, and of course, all of our colleagues. This truly is a historic day for our city. I want to thank everyone for being here. But Mayor Brown, I do want to take a moment to acknowledge your steadfast leadership and commitment to our city and the work that what you do, because this is what true partnership really looks like. And I'd also like to take a moment also just to acknowledge my counterpart, Councillor Paletti, because as a chair of Planning and Development Committee, Councillor, at the City of Brampton, for the leadership that you showcase with working with the council members and the federal government to bring real change to the zoning regulations to the City of Brampton, so that would allow more homes to be built. I really want to take a moment just to thank you for your leadership in making that happen. You know, we all know, I think there's one thing that we can all agree on, Brampton is a great place to live and call home, and I really want to thank everyone for being here for this wonderful announcements, because this is how we get things done. This is about collaboration, this is about leadership, and we're going to deliver more results for the City of Brampton. Thank you so much, merci beaucoup, and I will turn it over to media.
Nous allons maintenant commencer la période des questions. We'll now start with the question and answer period. First question goes to Simon Dingley from the CBC.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Welcome back to Southern Ontario. Sir, is there a divide in your caucus over how Canada should respond to the war in Gaza?
Canadians hail from every corner of the world and are proud of being Canadian, but also proud of their links to home. And right now, Canadians of Muslim, Arab, and particularly Palestinian origin are extremely worried, as are Canadians of the Jewish faith, Canadians with ties to Israel. Everyone is hurt and hurting. Everyone is grieving. Everyone is scared of what this means right now in terms of whether you can send your kids to school safely or whether you're going to be harassed walking in the streets or shouted at on a university campus. And they're scared about what this might mean around the world, in the region, but elsewhere. People are worried, people are scared, and Canadians of all backgrounds who are represented in Parliament are reflecting the very real fears and concerns that everyone has. Our jobs as parliamentarians is, yes, to speak for our communities, speak for our constituents, speak for Canadians, and make sure everyone's fears are being heard and reflected upon and acted on. But our job is also as parliamentarians, even as we're representing people, to reassure people, to reassure everyone that this is Canada. And here, our differences must and will remain a source of strength. Being able to learn from each other, being able to hear each other in their moments of celebration, in their moments of pain, being able to respect each other. That's who we are as a nation. That's what we've done over the past decades and indeed century and a half. So yeah, there are lots of different perspectives, but there are shared fears and concerns amongst all parliamentarians, and a commitment every single day to keep everyone safe here in Canada and everywhere around the world.
Puis-je avoir le même commentaire en français, s'il vous plaît?
Les Canadiens tracent leur origine dans chaque coin de notre planète. C'est une de nos forces, mais ça veut dire aussi que quand il y a des événements terribles qui se passent, comme on est en train de voir au Proche-Orient, les Canadiens sont affectés. Les Canadiens musulmans, les Canadiens juifs, les Canadiens qui ont des familles dans la région, les Canadiens qui s'inquiètent sur l'avenir de leurs enfants avec un monde de plus en plus instable. Les gens ont peur, les gens sont fâchés, les gens sont inquiets. Et bien sûr, le rôle de parlementaire, c'est de refléter les préoccupations et les espoirs de leur communauté. Mais notre responsabilité, c'est aussi de s'écouter, de travailler ensemble et de veiller à ce qu'on se souvienne de qui on est en tant que Canadiens. On est des gens de respect, des gens d'ouverture, des gens d'empathie, de compassion. Oui, les gens sont en train d'avoir mal maintenant, mais on va continuer d'être là les uns pour les autres. C'est comme ça qu'on va passer à travers, en se rappelant de qui Nous sommes tous.
Sir, second question, deuxième question. What evidence are you waiting for to see in the hospital explosion in Gaza before you assign responsibility for that incident?
Obviously, the hospital explosion was a terrible, terrible thing. We deplore the loss of civilian life, of innocence. We are working with our allies internationally to make sure that we can determine exactly what happened. The protection of civilian life, whether it's hostages being held by Hamas or civilians in Gaza or elsewhere, needs to be at the forefront of everything we do, not just in the region, but as an international community. And that is what our diplomatic efforts are focused on, whether we're speaking to the leaders of Israel or of the Palestinian Authority, whether it's my conversations with President Sisi or the Crown Prince of Kingdom of Saudi Arabia or any other leaders in the region, the King of Jordan. We are going to continue calling for peace and calling for the protection of all civilian lives.
En français, s'il vous plaît.
Okay. L'explosion dans l'hôpital était ahurissante et nous travaillons avec nos alliés pour déterminer exactement ce qui s'est passé. Mais la perte de vie de civils innocents est totalement inacceptable. C'est pour ça que nous travaillons à un niveau diplomatique avec tous nos alliés et tout le monde dans la région pour essayer de protéger la vie civile, d'essayer de protéger les gens qui sont les innocents dans Gaza. J'ai parlé au Premier ministre de l'Israël, au président Abbas de l'autorité palestinienne. J'ai parlé au roi de la Jordanie, au prince Salman, Mohammed Ben Salman de l'Arabie saoudite, au président Al-Sisi d'Égypte. On est en train de travailler avec tous les partenaires de la région pour essayer de protéger la vie civile et mettre fin à ces tensions.
Yasmine Mehdi avec Radio-Canada. Sur le même sujet, on sait qu'il y a au moins 150 Canadiens qui sont coincés dans la bande de Gaza sous les bombes depuis presque 2 semaines. On sait qu'Israël se prépare à une offensive terrestre. Ce matin, l'Égypte semble dire que le point de passage de Rafah, de son côté, a été ouvert pour les ressortissants étrangers. Qu'est-ce qui bloque? Est-ce que c'est les autorités israéliennes qui refusent que des Canadiens sortent du territoire?
Nous sommes, et depuis les débuts, une de nos grandes préoccupations, ça a été pour la sécurité de Canadiens dans la région. Comme vous savez, on a eu énormément de vols pour sortir les Canadiens de Tel Aviv. On a vu des Canadiens sortir de la Cisjordanie au cours des derniers jours et ça va continuer. Et on travaille extrêmement fort pour aider les plus que 150 Canadiens et leurs familles. On parle de potentiellement autour de 300 personnes pour pouvoir sortir de Gaza. Ça fait des journées que notre ministre d'Affaires étrangères, Mélanie Joly, coordonne avec nos alliés, avec des partenaires dans la région pour essayer d'assurer la sortie sécuritaire de Canadiens et de leurs familles à Gaza. Et on va continuer sans relâche jusqu'à ce que ça se fasse.
In English, please.
Obviously, keeping Canadians in the region safe and getting them out to safety has been one of our primary preoccupations from the very beginning of this conflict. We have airlifted out of Tel Aviv close to 1,000 Canadians and hundreds more from allied countries who were trying to get to safety. We've seen buses filled with Canadians, or one bus and hopefully another soon, come out of the West Bank into Jordan to keep Canadians safe. And we have been working since day one tirelessly to try and get safe passage for the 150, 160 Canadians that we know about in Gaza and the close to 150 more family members, ideally, who are with them. We're going to continue to work every single day. I spoke about it directly with President Al-Sisi of Egypt. I've spoken about it with President Netanyahu. We're going to continue to try and do everything we can as quickly as we can to get Canadians out to safety alongside our allies who are trying to do the same thing.
Sur l'Inde, maintenant, ça fait presque un mois que votre gouvernement a fait des allégations à l'endroit du gouvernement indien. Il n'y a pas eu de preuves, il n'y a pas eu d'arrestation. Vous dites que vous ne voulez pas d'escalade, mais les tensions semblent s'intensifier. C'est quoi votre voie de sortie?
Nous sommes très préoccupés par la décision de l'Inde qu'elle a prise cette semaine d'agir contrairement au droit international et de révoquer de façon unilatérale l'immunité diplomatique d'une quarantaine de Canadiens. Mettant de côté nos allégations sérieuses au niveau de la violation du droit international avec notre annonce qu'on croit qu'il y a des raisons qu'on croit qu'ils auraient pu participer au meurtre d'un Canadien en territoire canadien. Leurs actions cette semaine pour révoquer de façon unilatérale la protection diplomatique de 40 diplomates canadiens est quelque chose qui doit préoccuper tous les pays du monde. Si ça devient permissible à un pays de tout simplement révoquer les protections diplomatiques à des diplomates, le monde devient de plus en plus incertain et une décision d'ignorer, de faire fi à la Convention de Vienne sur les diplomates devrait préoccuper tout le monde, mis de côté les allégations sérieuses que nous avons amenées il y a plusieurs semaines. The actions that the government of India took this week are themselves contrary to international law. The government of India decided to unilaterally revoke the diplomatic immunity of 40 Canadian diplomats in India. This is a violation of the Vienna Convention governing diplomacy. This is them choosing to contravene a very fundamental principle of international law and diplomacy. It is something that all countries in the world should be very worried about. And this is putting aside the allegations we made of a serious violation of international law with the alleged killing of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil that the Indian government could have been involved in. This is a matter, putting that aside, that all countries should be concerned about. The government of India decided to cancel, to revoke the diplomatic protections of 40 diplomats working in Canada, working in India. This is something that has far-reaching consequences for the diplomatic world that I know many, many countries are very worried about. But it also has very real impacts on the millions of people who travel back and forth between India, as students, as family members, for weddings, for businesses, for the growing trade ties between our countries. The Indian government is making it unbelievably difficult for life as usual to continue for millions of people in India and in Canada. And they're doing it by contravening a very basic principle of diplomacy. This is something that should concern everyone, but it's something that has me very concerned for the well-being and happiness of millions of Canadians who trace their origins to the Indian subcontinent.
Good morning, Kamal Khera, the Canadian Press. Israel's government has voted to destroy Hamas. Canada's own ambassador to the UN, Bob Ray, has also said that Hamas has to be destroyed. Is that the position of your own government? And if so, what support is Canada providing for that effort to be achieved beyond words?
Hamas is a terrorist organization. They have been recognized as such for many, many years, if not decades, by the Canadian government. And they launched one of the most horrific terrorist attacks on civilians in history. Hamas's actions are absolutely indefensible. And Israel has the full right to defend itself in accordance with international law. This is why we call upon the return of all hostages immediately, and we call upon protection of civilian life in the region and around the world.
Israel's government has not yet outlined its plans for Gaza if and when it reaches its goal to destroy Hamas. If Canada's policy for the region remains a two-state solution along the 1967 borders, what plan would Canada like to see for that region after Israel finishes its operations?
We will of course continue to deal with things as they come up, and we will have those conversations when the time comes. But Canada remains firm and steadfast in our commitment to a two-state solution. The world and the region needs a peaceful, safe, prosperous, viable Palestinian state alongside a peaceful, prosperous, democratic, safe Israeli state, Israel. This is something that we have always called for. It is something we will continue to work for every day as we move forward.
Last question.
Hi, Grant Frisk from the Brampton Guardian and Mississauga News. A report this week from StatsCan indicated that up to 43% of condos and up to 21% of homes are owned by investors and corporations in Ontario. This problem is particularly pronounced in the GTA and communities like Brampton, the fast-growing communities like Brampton. So what's the government's plan to prevent that from happening again under taxpayer-funded programs like this?
There are many factors that have gone into the housing crisis that people are facing right now, whether it's just the growth of our economy or the growth of our population, whether it's the success of our communities, or whether it's underinvestments by previous governments in housing over a very long time that requires us to step up in very, very strong ways right now. But we do know that one of the factors that is challenging for so many people is the commodification of housing, the fact that people are using homes and houses as an investment vehicle, particularly corporations using homes as an investment vehicle, rather than families using them as a place to live, to grow their lives, to build equity for their future. We have been working with partners and will continue to work, including with the Minister of Housing and the Finance Minister, to create conditions in which housings can and should be owned by people who are living in them and who want to build a strong future rather than corporations looking to improve their bottom lines. It's a work we have to do collaboratively. Federal, provincial, and municipal governments have a role in it as well, but it is one that we're going to continue to do.
My follow-ups for Minister Fraser.
Yes, of course, but thank you for asking a question about housing in this housing announcement. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, Mr. Fraser, last week, Mississauga Mayor Bronnie Comrie used her strong mayor powers to reverse a decision to allow fourplexes. Now, you indicated earlier, previously, that that was a condition of receiving funding under the Accelerator Fund. How was that decision, or will that decision affect Mississauga's ability to apply for further funding under the program?
So we, and I take it you may have seen this already. First of all, as a starting point, we want to make sure that we are rewarding the most ambitious cities in Canada and communities in Canada who are willing not just to do a little bit, not to do what they were going to do anyway, but to do more as a result of receiving federal funding. That's why we're in Brampton today. Mississauga obviously had some very strong pieces to its initial application, but we invited them to go further. Council debated a motion that would have allowed fourplexes, and it did not pass at the time. We sent a letter in response to them indicating that we're disappointed they were unwilling to take that next step, because Mississauga's housing crisis very quickly becomes Canada's housing crisis, given the volume of people who want to move to this part of the country. The drive till you qualify phenomenon is starting to reach my hometown in small town Nova Scotia because so many people are jammed and unable to find a place that they can afford. We are going to demand that some of the fastest growing cities, some of the areas that are closest to the big urban centres in Canada do even more than might be required in places like New Glasgow, Nova Scotia. We have not shut the door completely on Mississauga. We have told them, on the basis of the information that we were aware of as recently as yesterday, that we were not in a position to approve their application. We do want to dig into the details. I actually had the opportunity to connect with Mayor Crombie this morning to discuss next steps for Mississauga that she may wish to implement. To the extent that Mississauga meets the ambition that other successful applicants have demonstrated, Mississauga should expect to be included as a successful recipient in the Housing Accelerator Fund. But I believe I owe it to myself and residents not just of Mississauga but Canada to ensure that I review the details to see that they are in fact as ambitious as the other successful recipients. The door is not closed, but we were not yet in a position to say yes.
Excellent. Merci tout le monde. Thank you, everyone.
Merci. Excellent. Thank you.